All right. I'd like to re-welcome everyone. That was a very interesting conversation earlier, don't you think? We are really fortunate to have some great people in our midst, and Matthew Taylor, who teaches at in Baltimore with the Institute for Islamic, Christian, and Jewish Studies, is pretty phenomenal. We've had him here before, so the second time he's here, and we plan to have him again. I want to say a very special thanks to Dina. Is Dina still here? She's still here? Yeah. Well, no, there's another D. There's a Dina, we love having you as well, but there's another D. I think she may have left, but she was the one that introduced us to Dr. Taylor. Anyway, when I found out that the Reverend Dr. Munther Isaac was going to be in town, we had him here before for his book launch, Christ and the Rubble. I wanted to make sure that he also gives us another visit here to be able to share some of his insights about what's happening in the West Bank and in the region. And so it was really an honor to get him here at such a last minute. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Many of you know him. He's a Palestinian pastor, author, and theologian. He's based in the West Bank. His book, Christ and the Rubble, Faith, the Bible, and the Genocide in Gaza became a bestseller following the sermon that he delivered in the Christmas of 2023 in Bethlehem, where what he rightfully called the horrific bombardment, displacement of over 2 million people, a genocide. He has been a strong moral voice pointing to the hypocrisy and racism of the West. And it's such an honor to have you here with us. Thank you so much for making the time to be here. First, when did you arrive to the United States this time?
When?
Yeah. Wow. Have you been traveling around?
Yeah, I've been here since last week, Wednesday. I was in Chicago. We held a big conference. We called it the Church at the Crossroads. And it was basically, you could call it the first response by the Christian church in the United States. And you'll be interested to know that the majority of participants were evangelicals, and it was held in a big evangelical church. To our work, to our calls, not just to stop the war, but to change the theology that led to this. So we've had 800 participants, close to 600 in person and 200 joined online, which shows that now finally it's too late. I don't know how to think about it, but the church here is beginning to respond to our calls. So that's why I came mainly here, and then I'm here now.
For some of our audience that may not know, can you tell us just briefly what an evangelical Christian is?
Anybody wants to help? Evangelical is one of those terms that means something different to every person. It's really hard to put a definite definition to that word. Because oftentimes I ask myself, am I an evangelical or not? I consider myself evangelical, but when I think of what some evangelicals in this country believe, you say, I want nothing to do with that word, But evangelicals are a group of, it's part of the Protestant family, believe importantly in a personal relationship with God, a very pietistic tradition. They take the Bible literally, and feel that our faith should impact every part of our lives. And to me, at least, these are the things I hold to when I say I am evangelical. The problem is that in this country, it's so much associated with many other political issues, cultural issues, that I don't think have to do with what a true evangelical is.
It's always difficult to ask people who come from the region, how are things? But I think it's important for us to know. It's important for us to hear it firsthand and have you. This microphone is echoey and I need to lower it a little bit. I apologize. This is like People's Airways, where the captain changes the Hello, hello. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Can you test your microphone?
Test 1, 2, 3. Is it echoing? They say no.
Is it echo? Is it okay?
No, they're fine.
I think we're better now.
Yeah.
All right. So back to the question. I wanted to ask you. I know you live in Bethlehem. Probably not as impacted as some other areas in the West Bank, and certainly not Gaza. That's for sure. But how has life been since October 7th in the West Bank in general?
The only reason we're not talking about the West Bank and how bad it is in the West Bank is it's nothing in comparison to a genocide in Gaza. Let's be clear. But I don't think we've witnessed a worse situation even within the West Bank than we are witnessing today. The numbers of checkpoints, the hours we spend on checkpoints, the reality of apartheid and segregation at its worst right now in the control of roads. I mean, today I was just reading how a main road outside of Ramallah was completely blocked by one settler. And no one dares to challenge that settler, because if you do, you know, not only will you be killed and targeted, but your whole village will pay the price. The same way that happened in Kufr Malik about a month ago when 3 young men were killed by the settlers, aided by the soldiers. So settler violence is on the rise, and we can't keep hold of the numbers of gates and checkpoints and blockades. The last number is more than 1,200. Last week they added 2 outside of Beit Sahur. I'm telling my friends from Beit Sahur. And one comment was, you know, we Palestinians make a joke about everything. Someone was making a comment, the next gate will be installed in front of the bathroom in our house. This is how it feels. Because everywhere you go, there's a new gate, there's a new checkpoint. And if you really want to understand the plan of Israel, what's happening in the West Bank, this is what Zionism is doing, and this is really the implementation of the Zionist plan of displace and then replace. Take all the geography without the people. They want all the land without the people. And if you want to understand what's happening, do me a favor and Google Smotrich West Bank map. How many of you have seen the map? And it shows 6 Palestinian areas, 6 of what we can call reservations, concentration camps. Because right now, if you close those gates, and most of them are closed, and you close 2 checkpoints in and out of Bethlehem, 3 checkpoints in and out of Ramallah, Bethlehem becomes another Gaza, Ramallah becomes another Gaza, fully isolated from the world. So you have to imagine, this is where we're heading to. A situation which Israel is creating, according to the plan, 6 new Gazas. By the way, Bethlehem was not in the map. Apparently, we will be part of Jerusalem. I don't know what they're thinking. The scary part is that there is nothing holding them. I think Smotrich and Netanyahu now feel that this is a perfect opportunity, that they have a green light to do whatever. I mean, if I'm trying to think what they're thinking, if we're trying to guess, well, we killed 100,000 people. We destroyed all the hospitals. We're moving block by block in Gaza now, destroying one building after the other, ethnically cleansing everything, killing everything, and still no sanctions on Israel. So what would stop them from doing the same in the West Bank? So these are very, very difficult and scary times we live in.
I heard that they're hiring private contractors to bulldoze homes that they're paying per house. It's quite disturbing when you hear things
nothing surprises us anymore. We would have never imagined what Israel could do or would do 3 years ago. I mean, it's way beyond our wildest dreams right now.
So you had this gathering of Christians talking about, I guess, denominations that have come around and are starting to call this a genocide. Is that what's happening?
There are some denominations, some Christian leaders who are coming around, as you said, and recognizing the reality as a genocide. And I feel that it could be one of our calling as Palestinians now, especially those who live outside, to make the world recognize our genocide, because it's adding it's adding salt to our wounds. The fact that they're killing us and not recognizing it.
Yeah.
And I feel maybe we will be like the Armenians 50, 60 years from now, asking the world to recognize the genocide that happened in our land. So I think it's important, and to me it's really important that we push for churches to call reality for what it is. I mean, that's the minimum you can do at this stage. And we're seeing churches coming to that. And honestly, I don't know what to think about that. I'm not sure whether it's something to celebrate or to rejoice about. It's already too late. Some of these churches have either said nothing in the beginning or made statements to the equivalent of Israel has the right to defend itself. So I don't know what to think about this other than to say every step in the right direction is a good step. Let's capitalize on it for more in the future.
I mean, a lot of Muslim organizations have been saying that, of course, have been saying genocide way ahead of time, but it seems like we need to have a Christian to validate a genocide sometimes, and we need someone who is more, I guess, in liking to Western sensibilities in order for us to recognize the humanity of somebody else.
We have called it genocide not just as Palestinians, but as Palestinian Christians from the beginning of November. Because we heard what the Israelis were saying. They told us. It's not like we're a genius, you know. They told us what they're doing. The problem is that no one, you know, took that seriously. And even now, we're still debating and pointing to the reports as such.
There are many people that are either thinking or have been traveling to the West Bank now to be in solidarity. What do you say to folks like that? How useful are these types of trips? How useful is for people from here to be able to go? We have some friends that are planning on going there, staying for a couple of months, and so on. What do you say to that? Is that very useful at this point to do? Is it safe for people to go?
Okay. Is it useful? Yes. Is it needed? Yes. We've made the call. Palestinians have made the call, come and be with us, come and stand in solidarity. Is it a good time? It's the best time to come. Is it safe? If you're coming for solidarity, you don't ask that question. Yeah. Okay? If you're coming for solidarity, you just show up and be with the people and show Palestinians that they are not alone and that you stand with them. And I can't emphasize this enough. This is the best time to come and spend time with Palestinians and be in solidarity. If you want to come as a tourist, don't ask me, is this a good time or not? Do it whenever you want. I don't care. If you want to do it as in solidarity act, this is the time to come. This is the time to show up. And the safety question and so on, I mean, people have been coming and showing solidarity from as back as, those who came to us personally as churches, December 2023. So, almost 2 months into the genocide, people began showing up upon our invitation. I encourage you to be with Palestinians, spend time, and avoid don't come as a tourist to visit the sites. There will be always times to do that, but come and really tell Palestinians that they are not alone. And it's important also to visit the villages that are being targeted now as an attempt from the Zionists to push Palestinians from the villages to the city. It's a clear plan. They are displacing Palestinians from the villages to go to these concentration camps. This is the plan. This is why they're doing these terrorist activities. So it's good to go and be with them as well.
Just as a show of hands, how many people in the last 2 years have been to the West Bank or are planning to go in the very near future?
The last 2 years.
Quite
Not enough.
Yep. I mean, a fair amount for this size of room. But yes, not enough. Absolutely. We actually...
can't get into Israel.
I'm sorry? We actually convinced our city council member here, Robert White, who is planning on going there as well. So that's a good plus thing. Still 2 years short and a dollar too late, or whatever it's called. It just feels.
I mean, the late question and the idea whether is it too late or not, and what good does it do now, given that we have not stopped a genocide. I think we have to think in a way in which we insist that we cannot let the loss and the sacrifice of the thousands in Gaza just go in vain. And I know we couldn't stop a genocide, and I know many people are joining too late. But if we don't capitalize on the change in the streets, among university professors, among many politicians, including some Republicans, among churches, if we don't capitalize on that, I think we would tell the people in Gaza that their sacrifice was in vain and everything was lost for nothing. So as much as I am deflated, and believe me, I am, because nothing changed in the last 2 years and that things seem to get worse on the ground, things around the world did change and are changing. And so when we say come and see and come and be with us, bring someone you think will change if you bring them. You know, in the conference, what I've been telling people, bring your pastor, bring your neighbor. Don't come alone. We're inviting people for a conference in May in Bethlehem, a Christian conference. And we're telling them, don't come alone. Bring someone and come and be with us so that we, change this narrative that exists in this country. So yes, we've lost a lot. It's too late. We could not stop a genocide, and it's deflating. It's heartbreaking, but we cannot stop. It means we need to do more, and we cannot let this moment pass without making some gains.
There are so many hopeful signs. Yesterday I was listening to what's happening with Eurosports, with the cycling that was happening around Madrid, the cycling tournament, and how thousands of pro-Palestinian people came out to block the path for the bicycles, to force them to cancel some of this because of the Israeli team participation. So I mean, and I was hearing the report on the BBC, and the reporter was like saying, we've never seen anything like this in our lifetime. This is so incredibly, a game changer, how important this is. And really, when you start hearing things like that, you get energized and you feel like what you're doing is what we should keep on doing. So thank you.
And let's be clear, let's be honest. It was these grassroots movements in the UK, in Spain, and in the Netherlands that ultimately led to a difference, to a different government positions. So it can happen. We can make a difference. And I'm glad that you mentioned the sports example, because one of the things that still baffles me is how Israel is still welcomed in UEFA and FIFA and the Olympics. And I've been pushing lawyers and friends, let's do something about it. We have to start, we have to tell because to me it's an ethical choice. You can't just normalize war criminals. You can't. So these are things that ultimately will bring a difference, I'm sure.
Absolutely. I mean, sport and culture is usually how change happens. So it's exciting to see the change taking shape. I know you're here in the United States to also spend some time with members of Congress. I know you're going to be visiting some members tomorrow. I don't know if you want to share any of that information at this point, but what do you hope to get out of it, and how easy has it been for you to get even FaceTime with some of these Congress people? Has it gotten easier?
It's always hard. They always pretend to be busy. They've been busy for a long time. But some have responded. I'm encouraged this time more than many of my previous visits. More in the Republican side are responding. We can't ignore the fact that the number of Democratic Congress people who are, for example, calling for weapon embargo is increasing, and the fact that we have now a Republican who's calling the acts as genocide. To me, we have to do these visits not just me, but everyone who can do these visits on behalf of Palestinians. As you all know, we have no diplomatic presence here. And we have not enough people in comparison who are speaking to the Congress. Some of these meetings, actually, you know, I feel, how are you in such a powerful position and you don't know anything? And other meetings, I feel, and this is the one in which I feel more depressed, is this is how much you know. You know a lot and you still vote this way. How come you do so? But we need to keep pressuring to bring a parable or something from the Bible. I'm a pastor, so I can't. You know, Jesus spoke of a widow who needed justice from a judge. And she kept persisting, and the judge wouldn't grant her justice. And the way the Bible describes that judge is, he has no regard for man and no fear of anybody. That's how I feel about the Congress. And she kept persisting and persisting until the judge decided to grant her justice just to let her go. And I think this is what we need to do. We need to keep pushing, whether in demonstrations or in these meetings, until justice is granted. So I'm trying to raise awareness, and I'm trying, to be honest, to also raise awareness about the Christian angle of it. The fact that many of these Congress people have special offices for religious freedom and or Christian issues, yet are voting in a way that is putting our lives in danger. I wonder how many Republicans know that someone like Huckabee poses an immediate threat to my life. He's empowering terrorists. And I mean, I'm not mincing my words. This is what it is. So I wonder if they see that. I wonder if they know that now they are attacking Christian villages. Now that because you have a Bureau for Religious Freedom, and most of the time religious freedom is a code for protecting persecuted Christians. You know, so do you know that Christians are being persecuted by those your government is empowering? So we need to call it for what it is, and we need to use that to raise awareness of the wider phenomena of settler violence.
Are you doing a press conference, or is it just meetings?
No, just meetings.
Just meetings. Can I ask you if you're meeting with Marjorie Taylor Greene? Is it okay to say that?
Is it okay, Hannah, to say that? We are, yes. Inshallah, yes. And
I never thought Marjorie Taylor Greene's name would get an applause in my room. So please make sure this is a very small, tiny overlap.
So
this is the worst Venn diagram ever. So I just want you to be aware of that.
So let me say something, Auntie. I come to this not as an American, and I always try to avoid getting into the American politics and the divide that exists and all of that. I am aware of the nuances and what's happening, but to me, we need every friend. And honestly, we've had a conversation before on the phone. She was very genuine, interested. She asked good questions. She was genuinely interested, and she said, I want to know more. I want to work more with you, and that's why I'm following up on this. So to me, it's an important reminder that we need to work with everyone, and we need to see and continue to believe in the goodness in everyone. And I'm sure that people can change, and I'm sure, and I've seen it. Throughout my life, I've seen people change from hardcore Christian Zionists into strong advocates for Palestine, because we treated them like humans. We had conversations with them. We invited them into our homes. I think that's an important element of how we can bring people and make a difference. Sometimes that works, believe me.
We're going to open it up for some questions for you all in just a few minutes, and we need to get him out of here because he's probably hungry and he wants to go and rest. He's been on the road for a while. Want to ask you a couple more questions. One, how do you see true solidarity with Palestinians for people that are here in this room, for people that you interact with, when you tell them, you know, we need solidarity, what does that mean? Is it tweeting something? Is it carrying a flag? Is it wearing a Palestinian shirt? Or does it have to be more action-oriented?
So first, I think it's important to understand an important concept, which is that solidarity today, and it should always be, by definition, costly. We no longer talk about solidarity in Palestine. We talk about costly solidarity, and I always say it's by definition costly. If it's not costly, it's not solidarity, it's just you're being nice to us, okay? And today, I'm sure you understand, in this political environment in the United States, it is costly. There will be a price. And so I hope you understand that what you're getting yourself into is you're siding on the right of justice, and you're gonna be asked about this one day by your children. What did you do when countries were acting above the international law and bullying other countries and not respecting human lives and human rights? So it's important that we act based on our responsibility, to me, based on my faith, my ethical system. This is why I'm into this. By the way, the only reason I got into politics is because of my faith. I've always resented politics. But I can't claim to believe in a good and just God who cares for the poor and marginalized and see this and be silent. You can't. So this is why we're asking people for solidarity based on your principles, based on what you believe in. No matter where you come from, whether Christian, Jew, Muslim, you know, if we believe in the goodness of God, we can't accept this. And yes, solidarity can mean a different thing to a different person. Because I don't want to minimize every small step in the right direction. And some of the most impactful things some of my friends did was just introduce an influential friend to us. And that made all the difference. He didn't tweet, he didn't demonstrate, he just made introductions, he made networking. So to me, we have to be wise, we have to be smart, we have to be strategic and effective. And yes, we have to act. And at the same time, we have to be clear that the time for what I call soft solidarity or soft diplomacy have way long term. So if you are not willing to acknowledge a genocide and tell me, let's have a conversation, but don't push hard on these terms, or apartheid, or if you're not willing to really make ethical choices as to with whom you meet, how you invest, who you invite to the table, also known as BDS. If you're not willing to engage in that, then I'm not sure you can claim to be in solidarity, true solidarity. You might be on a journey, I'll accept that. But if you take a position against them and say, I am in solidarity with you, but don't ask me to go this far, to me, the time for this kind of diplomacy and solidarity have long passed. So it could mean visits, it could mean bringing people, it could mean tweeting, sharing, writing, advocating, inviting pastors for conversations. As I've always tell people, the best thing you can do is invite your pastor to visit Bethlehem with us, introduce him to our positions and so on. But we need to do something, and every small act in the right direction makes a difference. By the way, again, I'm a pastor. That's a very Christian thing, because Jesus said, the kingdom of God is like a small mustard seed. You plant it, it dies, and then it grows into this big tree. There's an element of death, but there's also an element of everything starts small. As long as we are faithful in these small steps in the right direction. And I know many of you can give and are giving to organizations that are making a difference on the ground. Giving at this time is more than ever essential, but I hope it's organized. Every time I come to the States, I've been coming for a long time, but I'm more encouraged by the level of organization. Some of our advocates have how many Arab Americans are getting into politics. I think that's important as well, because we can't just do things the same way we did.
This is an uncomfortable question to ask a theologian, but how do you still continue to believe in this God when there's so much suffering that's happening, and how do you explain it? How do you explain it to someone who doesn't have as much faith as you do? I'm talking about me. And I'm
least you have
really
some
trying to
faith.
grapple with this, trying to understand it. I'm trying to understand, how do you maintain your faith under these really horrific times? I want some of that. I want some of that. I really do.
Good. Well, at least you admit you have some faith, so that's a good starting point. Faith is always seeking, by the way. You never I'm not, even as a pastor, I don't pretend or claim to be always there, because I've had my moments in which I've asked myself, where is God? Does he care? Does he listen? We've asked ourselves this all the time, and it's part of the journey. Faith is not always as if it's unshakable, but that shaking is part of the journey, and I think it's important. And where is God? To answer your question honestly, that was my line of thinking. I can't imagine my life without this faith. And I can't imagine trying to make sense of this pain and suffering without the presence of God, because it would make everything meaningless. And it will make all this pain in vain and for nothing. So you have to believe in goodness, in the goodness as if the opposite of evil. You have to believe in a holy other who invites us to imagine a different possibility. Otherwise, as I said, why did all this killing happen if there is no other part of the story? There is no continuation to that. So I'd rather suffer believing in God and wrestle with God as to why is this happening, than suffer with the knowledge that there is no God, no meaning in life, no value in anything we're doing. This is how I look at it. And the other way I look at it is that the question, where is God, many times is the wrong question. Because we're not talking about an earthquake and questioning the goodness of God for allowing this earthquake. We're talking about a man-made disaster that we could have stopped, that humanity could have stopped. So we need to ask, where were we? Where were the good people on earth? And back in, when I made that sermon in anger and frustration, I said, I need you to look in the mirror and ask, where was I when Gaza was going through a genocide? Because my faith in God makes me push for that question rather than ask God to do everything as if, he's always the superhero who's going to intervene. I believe God has shown us the way. It's the way of love, the way of humanity to one another. We have chosen a different path. So where is God? Where is the good people of the world? And finally, in one of the most mysterious things that I think none of us can explain, is that oftentimes, in fact, most of the time, when people are going through the most difficult moments of their lives, they can testify to the presence of God next to them. They will say something about, we felt God with us. God empowered us. So those who are going through the suffering themselves don't ask this question. They just believe. If you want a proof, look at the people in Gaza coming from the rubble and saying, Nushkur Allah. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. They still believe. They can't explain it. They won't write a thesis about pain and the reason behind pain and where is God in that. All they can tell you is that maybe we felt the presence of God with us. And that's a common human experience, actually. God in Auschwitz, right? There are many theologians who wrote about this. I forgot the name. I talked about Christ in the rubble. It's this concept of people going through pain in a mysterious way, feeling the presence of God. Now, we are here in D.C., and where I sit in Bethlehem, and we feel from distance and ask this question. But believe me, the people who are going through this, sometimes they ask this question, but more than often they feel God close to them. They see God in people.
Wow. I think I've earned some points here. I feel like I'm closer to where you are by a tiny, tiny bit.
So
Don't get carried away.
I'll keep coming. You
But
keep
a tiny
inviting
bit,
me
yeah.
here, and hopefully one day
One day.
you'll arrive.
Thank you. One day. My mother's been wishing for that for a long time. Anyway, I wanted to open it up to the audience. Do we have somebody that can carry the microphone around? Yes, thank you, Michael. If you want to give him your microphone, and I'll give you this. Thank you. You want to choose right there? Start there, and then back to Medea, and then back there.
Thank you so much, Father. It was so wonderful to see you here, and lots of love and strength and solidarity to you and your people in West Bank and Gaza. I wanted to ask you about this American Pope that we have. How have your conversations been like? Because, as you know, Pope Francis was he expressed a lot of solidarity with the people of Gaza and the West Bank, and he was a champion for the cause. What do you make of this American Pope? It's very still for me, as someone who's just watching and following, very hard to tell. Have you had any conversations with him or with the Catholic Church? And if so, what is your reading of it? And what do you think is there any space for him or room for him to express more solidarity with the people of Gaza or no?
Do you want to take more questions?
Yeah. Let's take a couple more questions. Sure. Can you get somebody to get water, please? Just ask one of the servers out there to get water.
So first, just a huge thank you for being here with us and for giving us a sense of hope in this terrible times. And a number of us here go into Congress on a regular basis, and we feel the most important thing is right now to move Republicans. Aside from Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I think you've already had a tremendous influence on, we've been using the arguments about America first. Why are we spending our money? Look at the opinion polls. But these are very crass kind of arguments. They're not anything that would create any sort of sense of humanizing the Palestinian people. So I wonder if you could give us some advice for when we talk to Republicans about what arguments we could use, especially those of us who are not particularly coming from a religious background.
You wanted a third one, Andy?
Maybe one more.
Do you want a third one? Yeah, one more. Why don't you take one from the back? Sorry.
I never hear about Afro-Palestinians. Can you please talk about them?
Yeah. There is a small number of Afro-Palestinians, not much, but there is a small number. They're part of the Palestinian people. Right now, we've never thought of them as a subcategory or as if they are a minority. They're part of the Palestinian people because diversity is an integral element of what it means to be Palestinian. There is no Palestinian ethnicity. There is a Palestinian identity that unites us. That's why, when you talk to most Palestinian Christian leaders, they tell you we're not a minority, we're part of the people. We don't speak a different language, we don't have different traditions or so on. So the very small number of Palestinian Africans are not as if a separate community. They are just part of the wider community. And in fact, we've been intentional, at least some of us, whenever we host, and we've been hosting many delegations in the last year who come in solidarity. And I am very keen in establishing relationships with African American theologians, and we've invited some and they came. And we made it a point to introduce them to some leaders in the community who are black. The Pope, I think every Pope has his style. We wish everyone was like Pope Francis. We loved Pope Francis. Pope Francis was different because he was very human. And he exemplifies the difference between, he didn't make statements. He made phone calls. There's a big difference between the two. So in fact, if you follow the statements coming from the Vatican recently, they're not bad, okay? I wish they were stronger, but it's not as if they have been silent, and it's not as if they're not making strong calls on moral, ethical standards to stop the war. Pope Francis was stronger, but it's so different than when you call the people every single day. So that's the difference. And to be honest, and to give credit where credit is due, the Catholic Church has been vocal, especially in Palestine. And Cardinal Pizzapella has been vocal. So are the other patriarchs. They came along, let's put it this way, they came along, especially in the beginning of the war, since the beginning of the war. And we cannot also undermine the tremendous amount of pressure they are under from the governments, namely, especially Israel. When you talk about they have something to lose, they have a lot to lose. Israel controls most of the cards. They control the clergy, the visas of the clergy, the permits of the Palestinians who work in the hospitals and in the schools. So they are very careful, because does Israel retaliate and punish? You bet they do. So they are very careful in the language. And that is the brilliance of Pope Francis, because no one can, they made the right statements. We wish they were stronger. I want churches to make statements, not just the Vatican. I want everyone to make statements to the effect of boycott, name apartheid. But at least, the difference between making a statement and making a phone call is so. That's what I say, the difference between making a statement and visiting and saying something while you are here is so big. And finally, you thank me, we must say thank you, really. It means a lot to us what you're doing. We know, and we fully appreciate your work. And the question, just to be short, the America First question, to me, these are all entry points, and we have to be strategic. We are trying to stop a genocide. We're trying to stop even a worse catastrophe if this escalates to the West Bank. So we have to be strategic. And I look at things like the America First or the resentment of many to the war. And we're seeing more and more, like, why are spending this money on war also? It's similar. I see them as entry points. But let's remember that they go beyond that. Because once you begin talking about the issue, one question brings another question, and then you begin talking about the issues, the real issues, evident by Tucker Carlson's interviews. He talked about with the American who was in Gaza with the food distribution. Amazing interview. He talked with the nun. So he didn't just stop on, why are we spending money on this war? Why are we supporting Israel only? He went beyond that. And I think the same with Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's going now beyond that, talking about children, talking about Christians. So it's an entry point that will ultimately and unavoidably bring people into the wider conversation and help them see beyond the what's in our best interest as the United States. And that's why, to me, many times talking about Palestinian Christians is the entry point that allows us to talk about the wider suffering of all Palestinians, because our suffering is that of all Palestinians. So we need to be smart and think of entry points and take advantage of every opportunity, especially today.
Let's take 3 more questions. Right here.
First of all, I think we should give Andy a round of applause for inviting Munther. Thank you. And I know you just said thank you to us, but Munther, you give us such courage and hope. And we're so grateful for your exemplary gospel witness. And there's so many here that stand with you, as you know, and around the country. I wanted to make an announcement, if I could, then I have just a question. On Thursday, it's a global day of action and strike for Palestine. I don't know if everybody is aware of that. And so our Christians for Ceasefire and Just Peace group is organizing a prayer service and procession outside of the Friends Committee on National Legislation at noon on Thursday. So there's going to be a prayer service and then a procession to the Capitol, bringing our witness, appealing for an end to the genocide, for an end to the arms embargo, for immediate access to humanitarian aid, for an end to apartheid in Palestine. And so please, if you can, join with us on that day. It's a multi-denominational witness, and our Christians for Ceasefire group has been going since the genocide began, organizing pray-ins and other nonviolent actions where people have been arrested for acts of conscience at Congress and elsewhere. And also, Kathy just came in the room. She has a trial on Wednesday for a witness that she did at the Israeli embassy. And so DC Superior Court on Wednesday, 9:30, courtroom 111. Kathy here will be on trial for her witness at the Israeli embassy. And then, Munther, I wanted to just ask if you could share with people the important work of Sabeel and the Friends of Sabeel North America, because some people might not know about it. And also to reflect on when Andy was asking you a question about faith and everything, this whole understanding of Sumud, which I find very helpful in dealing with this question that was raised about where is God and where is our faith in resisting a war-making empire. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next question. I think right there, the gentleman. And then the lady over there in the back.
Thank you so much for what you said. I just wanted to go back to what you said in your opening remarks about pro-Palestinian protesters having put pressure on certain Western governments, and that having led to steps like them promising the recognition of the state of Palestine, like Australia, Canada, Britain. Do you see that as a genuine action from these governments, or do you see that as just a cosmetic step that comes too far too late?
Excuse me.
Thank you so much. Since you mentioned being strategic, I've had this question for quite a while. It seems that the strongest propaganda that I've seen that people use to somehow, I hate to use the word justify, the genocide is you see a lot of anti-Islam, and it's very, it's very offensive, but it's pervasive, and it seems like, can't we do something to face that head on? Can't we do more to show solidarity, interfaith, and especially coming from Palestine and living, like you say, in a diverse, how important diversity is. There's something that can be done there to show, is it peaceful? And it seems to me that might be effective.
Difficult question. طيب. Sabil, you're asking about the importance of Sabil. Sabil is, and Friends of Sabil is an American organization based on the work of Palestinian theologian Naim Atiq and the work of Sabil Jerusalem, and now they have, to support that work, Friends of Sabil United States. I think Naim was a pioneer in understanding the importance of speaking directly to churches. And this is what he established in the 80s, back in the 80s, the first Intifada, when he established Sabil. And Friends of Sabil has managed to reach many, many churches around the United States. And, if we're honest in the assessment, they've made a huge difference, especially in the mainline denominations. But we need to do the same work now with evangelicals. And that's why today what we're doing with the Bethlehem Bible College, Christ at the Checkpoint, Bethlehem Institute for Peace and Justice, all of that, is to kind of take that model, take that example, and bring it to the United States. Because again, if we want to change things, we have to address the situation. This is a religious society. People go to church. And many of the politicians come from these churches that we need to reach to. Sumud right now has become a characteristic of Palestinian. I always warn, and we need to warn against romanticizing our Sumud and theologizing it and talking about it and from distance and not sustaining it. Because, you can admire it from distance and it won't do anything. What is needed right now is to do whatever it can to help the people on the ground survive. Knowing again, we need to say this again and again. What's happening in Palestine is precisely settler colonialism with the aim of removing the indigenous Palestinians from the land. This is the plan. They are telling us the plan. They're saying voluntary immigration. What does voluntary immigration? Let's create circumstances so that Palestinians have no other choice, no jobs, no security, checkpoints, a collapse of maybe of the Palestinian Authority to create chaos, and then they leave. That's the plan they're telling us. So we're not asking people to admire our Sumud, we're asking people to sustain our Sumud, sustain the organizations on the ground, sustain the resilience of the Palestinians in whatever way you are able to, including by doing advocacy on our behalf as you're doing here. The countries that have recognized Palestine, we ask this question. We ask the validity of this question. I understand the validity of it, and I am torn apart as to how to think about it. Because part of me fears that these countries are taking these steps as an alternative to imposing sanctions and recognizing genocide. So we must ask the real question, what difference will it make on the ground? And we also have to question, how serious are you about a Palestinian state, knowing that Israel has killed that possibility? Even before the genocide, I had a conversation with a diplomat, European diplomat, and he's like, we stand with a two-state solution. I said, do you believe it's dead? We had a conversation. He says, yes, I think Israel has killed it. I said, so why are you promoting a dead solution? It says a lot about these countries. Having said that, I still think it's an important step in the right direction if it is coupled with other steps, namely isolating Israel and its ally, United States. I think if England if the UK moves on with its backing of a Palestinian state, and we create some sort of a distance between the US and the UK when it comes to Palestine, I think it's a step in the right direction. I think if it creates a momentum, a global momentum towards international legitimacy, and trying to find a way to resurrect the two-state solution from the dead. We know something about resurrecting people from the dead, by the way. Then why not? Okay? So let's not lose.
That's why I want to be
let's
on your
not be
team.
very cynical. Let's not be very cynical, and I understand why we can be cynical. And let's see where that leads and if it can make into a difference. And finally, if I wasn't fully, if I was very suspicious of that move, and as I said, I have reasons why, what makes me want to say, actually, that's a good thing, and let's applaud it and wish others do it, is to see how Israel responded to it. So that tells me they're afraid of it. So maybe it's a good thing. And let's see where it leads, and let's support that effort and ask other countries to move on with it, and applaud countries like Spain and Ireland and others who are taking it to the next step. I think, once you get something through pressure, this encourages you to ask for more. And I hope that's the attitude we build as Palestinians. And finally, the question in the back about anti-Islam rhetoric, right? Islamophobia. I mean, we have to acknowledge, and we will be fool not to see, that this is an important part of the Zionist narrative. It's an important part. And sadly, it has led to, in my experience, to many Christians, especially on the right, taking strong positions on Israel. Now, how do we see it as an important part? Why is it always that I'm asked as a pastor, whenever I meet with other pastors, they always ask me, are you persecuted by Islam? It's not a naive question. It points to a bigger picture in which they have managed to frame the colonialism of Palestine into a battle between the Judeo-Christian tradition and Islam. Empires, as many have noted before, and I've written about that, empires need enemies because they need to spread fear, because it's the fear that allows them to dominate, that allows them to control and be ruthless. And so they have chosen and they have made Islam and Arabs into that enemy, and we need to be careful to fight that tool of the Zionist empire. And we have a lot to do, especially on the ground here as well. And to me, all of this shows the power of narrative, and what I call one of the most deceptive narratives and discourses in recent history. What happened in Palestine and how it was explained, including the role or the place Islam was portrayed to play in this conflict or in this reality. What I mean, because if you make a survey among most Americans, white Americans, but everyone, about who poses the biggest threat to Jews in the world today, I bet you the vast majority will say Muslims. And this shows you how deceptive and powerful this narrative, because it made people forget that it was more, less than 80 years ago, that European Christian, educated with suits and ties and technology, that committed the most horrific crime against the Jews, the Holocaust. Yet somehow we think it's the Muslims who are the problem, who are violent. Okay? So you see how the narrative is so strong, so deceptive, that has shifted the conversation completely. And there is a lot to be done here on the ground to show otherwise. Not denying there are extremists in Islam, but there are extremists everywhere, right? The assassination of Charlie Kirk. He was a Mormon, he was a Christian. We all have extremists. Look at the settlers. That's not denying that. But let's not make it as if that historically this is the problem. So I thank you for that question. And there is a lot to be done on this ground when it comes to changing that narrative and that deceptive narrative.
I wanted to ask you something before we go to the next question. Do the Arab countries have any role to play at this point, or have we sort of just washed our hands from that angle?
Well, there was the Arab summit today, and I think they solved everything, and they decided to boycott and cancel the Abrahamic. I mean, we need to be real with the expectations, I think. Some countries have given, in my opinion, beyond their capacity, like Jordan. Whether aid on the ground, opening the borders to us, all kinds of support. Very outspoken about the genocide. Other countries can do more. My biggest problems, to be honest, is with the countries that normalize the relationship with Israel. I mean, that's the least we can ask. That's the least we can ask, that you don't normalize the relationship until the occupation is over. And right now, there is a new phenomena that we're talking about. Namely, we talk about Christian Zionism. There is Islamic Zionism today. I mean, it's baffling to me to hear voices using even religious arguments in the Arab countries, especially in the Gulf, in favor of normalizing the relationship with Israel, the importance of Israel. And of course, part of it is this alliance they created, against one axis, the Shiite, and so on. So if you ask a normal Palestinian, we are very disappointed. We think the Arab countries united can do more. But we also recognize that the people in the streets are different. People in the streets are 1,000% with the Palestinian cause. So yes, there is, we feel there is more that can be done.
I would say that some people may be surprised at your sort of generous comment about Jordan. I mean, much of what they've been doing is very performative. They, of course, their queen is Palestinian, but she says the right thing. But they do everything else, with trade and normalization, all of that with Israel. So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it seems like it's I think for many of us probably that was a surprise.
No, I think that's why I said we need to be realistic about the capacity of certain countries, and that's why I said to their maximum of their capacity they have been able, because to us Jordan is our access to the world, and we need to be smart in how they I follow what their foreign minister is saying. He's doing amazing work in terms of at least they're openly calling out the genocide, and I think that they are taking a very, very strong position against the resettlement of Gazans in Jordan. To me, that's vital. That's really important. And I don't want us to undermine. I mean, yes, charity is not everything, but the hospital, there is a function, I'm not sure there is a functioning Jordanian hospital still functioning in Gaza and so on. So.
All right. We have probably time for another round of questions, and then we'll let Dr. Munther out of here. So let's go to 4 questions. All right. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. How's that?
Hello. Yeah. Thank you for doing this. I'm wondering if you could give us a message.
Closer to your mouth, please.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Can you give us a message for Palestinian Christians in the diaspora who we are doomed to only go back for a couple months a year if we do go back, and we have to live in America or Canada or South America or Europe or Australia and watch what's going on. I'm just wondering if you could give us a message to people like us.
Palestinian Christians in the diaspora.
Yeah. Next one. Let's go there.
Thank you. Anyway, the biggest challenge of my life has been being a Jew during this time and my specific responsibility as a Jew and also as a psychologist and a political psychologist. And I've gone to Congress many times with Doctors Against Genocide and also Code Pink and also J Street, and connected with a lot of the divisions within the Jewish community and other communities. And I feel that I have to speak out as a Jew, like I'm a Jew, and what's going on is not anti-Semitism, it's horror, or what Israel's doing is not making us safer. But I'm also always on a learning curve, and sometimes I need to be, want to be more culturally sensitive, or so I'm evolving. So if you have any thoughts about what I could do, and also have you met with any Jewish delegations?
What you can do as a
What you can do as a Jew here in the States.
And who was the next person? Over here? Okay.
Thank you.
Is it possible to ask?
Put the microphone very close to your mouth, please. Thank you.
I'm trying to formulate my question. Is it possible to ask if there's one or two main actions that a lot of people can focus on that would make the end of the genocide sooner rather than later? It seems like for the last 2 years, a lot of efforts is happening, in many different directions. As you said, people do what they can. But sometimes it does feel like, okay, it's all great, but what could let the Gazans eat today? That's my question. Allah يحميكم ويساعدكم. أنا من لبنان. إحنا قلبنا معكم.
Hi, so I first just want to say thank you for sharing your knowledge and your experiences. Oh, thank you for sharing your knowledge and experiences, for being here with us. So I wanted to ask, you mentioned earlier about facilitating conversations with Zionists and changing their opinion in that way after having conversations with them. I just wonder how you go about facilitating that, as you disagree so fundamentally on issues including like your right to exist, your human rights. And I also wonder if you've fostered any sort of relationships with Israelis to, promote peace from within. I saw an example recently of some Israeli youths that were burning their draft papers, for example. So I'm just wondering if you have spoken with any people that, you disagree with, like in Zionists, and how you facilitate having, common ground and having those important conversations.
Okay. Okay. Good questions. To Palestinian Christians in the diaspora, I love that question. Quick answers. First, visit. Visit and reconnect. I think it's important that you reconnect with the roots, with the family, with the village you came from or the town. It's important. Second, advocate, especially in churches. I think people will want to listen. And I've known many of my Palestinian Christian friends who reached out to their pastors, to their priests, and said, why aren't you talking about this? These are my family, and then help me, and so on. So you can do that. I think Palestinian Christians in America are uniquely positioned to do that. And of course, advocate in all aspects, but especially within churches. And then give, invest, whether it's here or back home. It's really important that those who were forced to leave, and by the way, I don't talk about hijrah, I talk about tahjir. I don't know how to say it in English. Because most people who come here didn't want to leave, We were forced to leave. It's forced displacements. Let's call it for what it is. So you were forced to leave, but at least find ways to reconnect with the roots and find ways to help, even if by giving to organizations here that are doing the work. So yeah, to my Jewish friend, and please understand that I don't feel people have to always explain as if we interpret the acts of Zionism as if they are the acts of Jews. We don't. Believe me, we don't. And so no fears as if to apologize. And I think one of the things that American Jews can help us with, more than anything, if now I'm here speaking as a pastor, is to help us dismantle the domination, I don't know how to put it, Saitara, domination of the Zionist on the monopoly of Zionists on the Christian-Jewish dialogue. And many times it's our fault as Christians, namely American Christians. And many times when I meet with American Christians, I tell them, you know, why are you talking to the Zionists and ignoring Jews who are not Zionist? And so you have to also, I think, if you reach out to them and if you impose yourself on these Christian-Jewish dialogue circles, beginning with the church next door, okay, I think that could help us tremendously break this this monopoly of Christian-Jewish dialogue among, you know, by the Zionists. Because believe me, it's one of the strongest tools in the arsenal of Zionism, this Christian-Jewish dialogue. And I mean, synagogues and churches. There are certain organizations that, so if you look at the majority of Christian Jewish organizations that does dialogue, and there are many of them, they are exclusively Zionist. Maybe I'm being too harsh, but this is how our impression. So how can we create Christian Jewish dialogue forums that are not Zionist? And how can we challenge, as I said, the monopoly of, so that's what I meant. And I'm doing some of that, by the way, trying to do some of that. Actions that people can focus on. Honestly, I feel this is not my role. I feel, you know, you have to identify the action that most suitably fits your position, your situation, your locality, and then go from there. You might be a part of a Christian group, a Jewish group, a secular group, and so on. And I think it's important that this conversation takes place here. The only thing I would say when it comes to actions that people can focus on is we don't have to do everything as if anew. Look around you, what is already happening, and join it. And if you're doing something and someone else is doing something similar, create alliances. This has been my impression coming to the United States a lot. A lot is doing, but it's scattered. We can be stronger together. I always tell pastors, why aren't you reaching out to the Jewish people who are doing this in your neighborhoods or in your cities, and to the Muslim groups that are doing this? We're stronger together. So when you feel overwhelmed by this question, just look around you, what's happening, and join it, rather than thinking, what can I do? Because a lot is already happening. Facilitating the conversations with Christian Zionists. I love that. And to answer quickly the second part of your question, some Israelis are beginning to change, not enough to change the political discourse in Israel. Yet my South African friends always tell me, Munther, nothing is going to change until the Israelis begin from within, and you have to help them. There are some movements of Palestinians and Israelis that believe in what's called resisting the occupation together. They're not strong enough yet. There are many Israeli voices that are doing amazing work, not enough to make a difference. But when you ask me, am I in touch? Remember, you know, I'm not always able to get the permit as a clergy to go to Jerusalem, to go to the Israeli side. Okay, the vast majority of Palestinians cannot meet with Israelis because of the restrictions Israel imposes. And even I, as a clergy, we used to think we are privileged to get this permit. Not anymore. Okay, or maybe it's just me, I don't know. But when it comes to Christian Zionists, here is two advices. Advice number one, I mean, I think it's important to help them understand what they are saying and how it is impacting the situation. And sorry, I'm again being very strategic. I'm not selfish. I'm not only concerned about Palestinian Christians, but this has been our strategy that works. How their theology is impacting the church in Palestine. That has always been the most successful entry point. So that's the conversation, that's how you stimulate a conversation. Once you do that, I think that my second advice is that you have to be wise. You have to recognize some people will never change. It's clear. Don't waste your time. Others don't know. Do you know how many Christian Zionists I know who don't know? They wish they knew. They just don't. They just assume Israel of the Bible is Israel of today. They don't know Palestinian Christians exist. So that's the first thing we do when we start a conversation. And usually the second step is come and see. And that has been the most effective strategy that worked when it comes to Christian Zionists. And as I said, many of them have genuinely good hearts, but they don't know. And once they know of Christians in Bethlehem, what they say, what we're doing, it doesn't have to be something political we're doing. Once they know there is a hospital in Gaza, you will be shocked how many Americans don't know that one of the main hospitals in Gaza is a Christian hospital. Okay? So once they know about this information and then you begin a conversation, I think this is how things change.
Tomorrow there's going to be a press conference. Some of the parents of Americans that have been killed by Israelis are going to be speaking out. The parents of Rachel Corey, the parents of Saifullah from Florida, the parents of Ajir Engi, who was the Turkish woman that was killed as well. I hope I pronounced her name correctly. But anyway, they're going to be having a press conference tomorrow, and I know you're going to be meeting with members of Congress tomorrow. What are your three asks of members of Congress? Because oftentimes they'll tell you, limit your questions and limit your asks to three different things that are the main at the top of the agenda. What are your three asks of these members of Congress?
Now that you ask, I have to think about it.
Well, it's something. If you don't have to answer right now, but if it's something I think it's important to have in your toolbox, because you want to walk away with having asked the same thing over and over again, so that we can ask the same thing as well, and we become an echo chamber for what you say.
I think if I am able to help them see and convince them that the current policies of the United States are leading the entire region into a disaster, that's what I'm going to try. Through my window as a pastor who lives in Ramallah and who pastored in Bethlehem for years, if I am just able to show them that, because I'm not going to use the justice angle or the moral angle. That's not how it works in the Congress. I know that's not how it works. I've learned this a long time ago. I can tell you stories, we don't have time. If I can just show them that what they're doing is leading, as I said, the entire region into not just the unknown, into disaster, including the fate of Palestinian Christians, I think that's what I hope to do. And then hope that my friends here will take it from there and ask for more specific things based off every congressperson, where he serves and where he stands on certain issues and so on. Because again, I don't come to this conversation as an American. I don't have specific legislations that I want them to vote for. But I want them to see how dangerous the current American foreign policy is to us as Christians, but to the wider region as well. I mean, I've been saying it, and when I meet with Republicans, I'll tell them, Huckabee is a danger to my life. That's what I'm going to say, because he is. So I want them to see how dangerous it has become for us Palestinians, even within the West Bank, to still live and exist. By the way, to come here, my biggest concern, the thing that I couldn't sleep the night thinking of, was whether I will be able to leave Ramallah. Once I left Ramallah, khalas, I know I'll find a way to cross the borders. I'll find a way to charm myself at the borders, at the airport with my collar and tell them I'm here to pray with the church and get in. I wasn't afraid that I won't be in. I was afraid if I will be able to leave Ramallah. This is how difficult it has become in the West Bank. So I hope I can share these stories and that they begin to rethink their positions.
But I would also suggest and encourage you to use the moral consciousness, because you as a theologian have that ability to do that. I couldn't go and ask for the moral consciousness as easily as someone like you would. And I think there's something to be said if you really believe that you're a Christian, if you really believe that you are a person who has faith. How could you allow starvation of innocent people? How could you allow? So I know that moral consciousness has been something that we sweep aside and say, well, we can't really reach people that way. But if there's anyone that can, I think someone like you can do that.
I hope so. And I mean, I've said it, I've written about it. What's missing in politics today is precisely that, morality and ethics. It's completely missing. I told you, you ask, I'll tell you the story. And because many years ago, during the Obama times, I was in meetings at the State Department. This is how long I've been doing this. And in the State Department, I thought I was there to raise awareness about issues, only to discover, according to someone who worked in the Palestine department, in the State Department, who told me literally, and I quote, every olive tree that is uprooted from the West Bank, we know about. And then he told me, Sata, you're not here to educate us. We know what the problem is. Go to the other building, pointing to the Congress. And that's when I realized it's not about, if they only knew the injustices that are happening they know the injustices that are happening on the ground. Sometimes they know it better than us. Believe me, in some meetings with senators, they told me information I didn't know about our land. They know. It's a question of, they're not doing the right thing. So maybe if we can convince them that what they're doing is this dangerous, this reckless, maybe they will open their eyes. But don't worry, I will always bring, that's part of who I am. I will always bring that element. But we need to also, help them see how dangerous this policy is to us Palestinians.
I think with people like you there, I am less worried. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Reverend Munther Isaac.
Thank you.
We love
Thank
you.
for
We
the
appreciate
support.
you. And Godspeed. Thank you.